Good afternoon, class. My name is Alex Miguel Escaras, and today I will be presenting my CPT assessing various news media sources. The first source I will be discussing is a news report from CBC, headlining, Twitter permanently suspends Trump, citing risk of violence. As a lot of you may know, Trump was a huge controversial figure on social platforms like Twitter, often sending out very controversial tweets regarding politics to his almost 89 million followers at the time of his suspension, and was most recently critical with his claims about election fraud after losing the most recent president election. Now, as it says in the headline, Twitter decided to permanently suspend Trump's Twitter account, citing it to be a risk of further violence. For context, days prior to his suspension, a mob loyal to Trump stormed the U.S. Capitol in the event that is now known as the Capitol riots, with the intention to stop the steal and overturn Trump's defeat. Trump, up until that point, had been tweeting away for weeks, encouraging his loyal supporters to not back down and fight back against the rigged elections, and also held multiple rallies across the nation over this time period to garner further attention and support. Twitter's decision to silence Trump's voice on social media came after thousands breached the Capitol building and resulted in the deaths of 5 people. Shortly after Trump's banning on Twitter, Facebook followed suit and suspended his account on their platform as well. This article is credible as it contains accurate facts throughout surrounding the events that occurred at the Capitol, as well as includes direct cited statements from Twitter and Facebook's teams regarding their decisions. For example, in a statement, Twitter said, "In the context of horrific events this week, we made it clear on Wednesday that additional violations of the Twitter rules would potentially result in this very course of action." Now, to look at the news media outlet as a whole, CBC has built a reputation for their efforts to cover stories in a neutral manner, known for writing in a progressive mindset. All of their employees must follow the principles as expressed through their journalistic standards and practices, a highly extensive and thorough list of regulations that, after further inspection, would certainly be too many to list. Lastly, the article was put together by the Associated Press, an independent global news organization dedicated to factual reporting. The Associated Press have earned their reputation as one of the least biased media outlets in the world and have become an industry standard that hundreds of news organizations aim to follow since their founding in 1846. As for underlying viewpoints, the article agrees to the idea that Twitter was a vital tool to Trump, stating that he had used Twitter to announce policy changes, challenge opponents, insult enemies, praise his allies and himself, and to spread misinformation. This is further evident through a small bias represented by a bias through placement in the article, as it is structured to first highlight his suspension and its correlation to the Capitol riots, before presenting other parts of the story. Another example of subtle bias is through the word choice and tone as shown in this statement from the article. Trump posted a video on Twitter calling the mob very special people and saying he loved them. 5 people died, including a Capitol police officer. This juxtaposition is meant to showcase the manipulation that could be found on his Twitter by attempting to downplay or distract someone from the magnitude and actual events of the riots. Moving on to the opinion editorial or op-ed piece, I will examine Paul Waldman's, a columnist at the Washington Post, opinion that Twitter's Trump ban is even more important than you thought. To start with credibility and overall trustworthiness of the article and media outlet, the Washington Post is known for their coverage of politics and subtopics such as identity politics due to their location in Washington being so closely located within the vicinity of high controversial figures such as the U.S. President and news regarding the White House. As is with all other news outlets, the Washington Post holds very strict regulations and restrictions when it comes to the news they report and with how much freedom they allow their journalists to ensure that facts are always the top priority. As for the opinion/editorial sections, the columnists are not bound by the same rules, however, and as such have the freedom to be more biased. With that said, Paul Waldman is still a qualified individual who has authorized 4 books on media and politics and has voiced his opinion on a variety of topics. In this article, Waldman argues that the silencing of Trump's voice on Twitter may have completely shaped American politics for the coming years, and presents 3 reasons why. 1. Twitter has become a massive space for journalists looking for news headlines, which means whenever Trump spoke on Twitter, he would be speaking to thousands of waiting journalists, and Trump knew this. Without this, he loses a critical passage to the mass media around the globe. 2. The platform was a place where Trump could speak uncontested, truly free to say whatever he wanted without being challenged. Trump was known to gain attention worldwide due to his tweets, and whether it be good or bad, it still brought more eyes to his platform. And 3. Trump no longer has his most valuable resource to constantly reinforce an affinity between himself and his supporters. Trump shared his opinions often on not just politics, but on general topics such as sports, the Oscars, and even celebrity scandals, which offered a level of connection to his supporters, as Trump is genuinely being himself and expressing his personal opinion. Now, to compare an op-ed such as this to the formal news article from CBC, some clear benefits and problems can be found. An op-ed offers an opportunity to educate and inform a large audience about an issue that is vitally important to the organization it comes from. This source in particular offers an honest and critical opinion that may help persuade others with help from the credible backing of being published on a trustworthy media outlet such as the Washington Post. Problems may arise when columnists make mistakes or errors in their information gathering, and therefore may present a not fully credible argument, leading to persuading people under a false or misleading opinion or misdirecting judgment towards the media outlet as a whole. The political cartoon I have chosen is made by Marian Kamensky and was found on Cartoon Movement. Titled, Twitter Stops Trump's Lies. The cartoon features a depiction of people dressed in Twitter's brand catching and stopping the emerging birds from Trump's phone. The birds are drawn with long noses, a reference to Pinocchio's nose whenever he would tell a lie. This is representing Twitter's actions to stop Trump's tweets, as they have been widely known to spread lies and were taken down to prevent any further spread of misinformation. The purpose of this cartoon is to entertain and satirize Trump's behavior on Twitter and the effort that had to be taken to finally strip him of his power. The message being conveyed is that Trump uses power on Twitter to spread lies to the masses to the point where he had to be stopped. The cartoon is effective as it represents the magnitude of lies he spreads daily as shown through the piles of already cut off beaks, and is at the same time effective due to the entertainment value and mockery of watching Trump whine like a child whose toys got taken away. To connect this cartoon to one of the previously mentioned news sources, the underlying social point in a news article is well represented in this cartoon, as it visualizes the amount of power Trump had on social platforms like Twitter in being able to spread lies and manipulate users, as well as depict the drastic actions that had to be taken to forcefully silence him. Trump's banning on social media can be connected to a variety of issues present in today's world, and the first and most prominent being the misinformation in media. According to a study published in 2019 by an MIT professor, falsehoods are 70% more likely to be retweeted on Twitter than the truth, and reach their first 1,500 people 6 times faster. With these numbers, it's not hard to imagine how much of an impact someone with 89 million followers like Donald Trump can have in voicing an opinion or directly persuading the public. Another connection closely related to this is the clear fact that the amount of media consumed has grown exponentially over the years, especially recently due to the quarantining as a result of the COVID pandemic. More people have more time online than ever before, which only means the easier spread of misinformation. With both these aspects in mind, I'd like to bring up what I believe to be an issue that needs to be more openly talked about, that being parasocial interactions, in other words, a one-sided psychological relationship, and the dangers that come with it. A very definitive example of this is Trump's relation to his cult-like following, a mass of people that disregard other convincing evidences opposing him and will blindly act to help his cause. The dangers of these relationships were already proven with the extent of how far the Capitol riots went, and further awareness must be brought to light. To connect this situation with my own, I am a heavy consumer of media, and it's become important to remind myself of the dangers of parasocial interactions and to continually strive to lead my own life and to prioritize the relationships I have in reality than the ones I create with online figures or personalities. This idea also relates to owning a personal opinion when it comes to politics in general, as it is far too easy to fall under the influence of false information or a misguided judgment from a political figure. It is crucial to maintain an opinion that you truly believe based upon facts and knowledge with the intention of bettering yourself and bettering the communities and societies around you. Thank you for listening to my presentation.